that this is Mike Osterling, and Mike's going to go ahead and present his second lean thinking segment. So Mike, go ahead and take it away.
Great, and everybody should see my screen. If you can't, let me know. Hey, good to see everybody. Good morning from the West Coast. Good afternoon if you're other points between here and wherever. Good to see you guys again, and thanks for sharing your time and thoughts, because that's where a lot of this comes into play, is you guys sharing your thoughts. I only get 10 minutes out of the show here. So hey, so Thinkinar number 2, I'm talking about necessary elements for effective change. And in this one, we're going to be talking more about capabilities and capabilities for change. And this plays a part. It's not a cure-all, but it plays a part in reducing the frustration, reducing the fear that folks run into when they are confronted with change, or as we talked about last time, when we're asking them to help participate in experiments. So we talked about the 6 necessary elements for effective change in this model. 5 of them are here, and we talk about those unintended consequences. People are confused if they don't know why we're making the change. People change slowly if they don't have that what's in it for me, the WIFM or the motivation. If they don't have the skills or the resources, they have anxiety or frustration. If there's no plan, they go running off in all kinds of different directions. We don't have concerted effort, and it's hard to build up momentum. And the 6th element that we touched on briefly was engaging the right folks in the change. You know, and when we observe and we learn and we think through what Toyota Production System and Toyota Way and Lean in general, we say a foundational pillar, a really critical element, is respect for people. And I think proactively walking through these 6 elements, intentionally thinking about them, and this doesn't have to be big, complex analysis for every change that we're doing, but if we're not at least considering these different elements, I think it's disrespectful. So if we do walk through it, then we're demonstrating that it's respect for people manifested. So I think it's really important that we intentionally walk through these things and put ourselves in the other people's shoes. Because after all, I like this little cartoon. It says at the bottom, as far as I'm concerned, if that guy in the middle who's holding the plug, if he doesn't have a bucket, throw him off the boat. And, you know, you can't blame necessarily these other folks that are bailing water. If all we've done is teach people how to bail water and give them buckets, how are we supposed to expect them to appreciate a plug, much less coming up with a plug to stop the leak, to stop the problem at the source? So if all we've done is modeled, trained, promoted firefighting or resisting change, and I mean, I go back to my early career when I was internal, people would come to me with ideas for change. And if they were small ideas, I was like, what are you talking about? Most of it was body language. Some of it was explicitly saying, I don't have time for this. And if that's the behavior, and if that's the behavior we model and we promote firefighting, how do you think folks are going to react to change or prevention if that's all they've seen? So what this section here, we really want to talk about skills and resources. So I think one thing when we're talking about skills, we've got to help people develop or gain or get these skills. And when we talk about what skills are those, obviously it's going to be very situational. It's going to depend on the complexity of the change that we're asking folks to do. It could be as straightforward as, hey, here's how you run the new process. It could be a very simple standard work, TWI, and you demonstrate, demonstrate, explain, they demonstrate and explain, and it could be that straightforward, or it could be incredibly complex. we're asking somebody, hey, our change is we're going to, long-term play, we're going to really try to drive A3 thinking into the organization and A3 problem solving. And so now it's like, wow, what are all of the skills that are required to be an owner for an A3 or to coach someone else on an A3? So when you think about an A3, it's like, hey, what is an A3? How do you author it? How do you socialize it? There's skills related to socializing it. There's skills related to engaging the process owners and the folks who are intimate with the issues, the problem that the A3, I'll say, surrounds or encompasses. Hey, there's skills related to just things as simple as describing or defining a problem or synthesizing the data, kind of distilling all of the information that we get, or to do root cause analysis. And so for some things, I mean, skill acquisition could be going to a half-hour class. Hey, how do I do a macro in Excel? Or other things, it could be very much an extended activity. And I think something that we need to be careful of is I might have an assessment or a perception on what somebody's skill gap is, but all I can tell you is my assessment is probably wrong. So we should be we need to make sure that we deliberately, again, this is all situational, because we may know the person very, very well and have a good idea where their skills are at and have had those conversations and have plans in place to develop, or have plans in place so we understand where people's skill levels are, what their developmental plan is. And other people, we may not know where they're at all. So I think it needs to be intentional. We need to engage the folks who we think need additional skills. So of course, there's different ways to develop those skills. There's, for simple stuff, it could be very directive. Hey, this is how you do it, ABC, show me you can do it. And in other cases, well, sometimes it's directive. We're showing them, we're giving them that skill. And other times I'm going to say it's more Socratic, where we're pulling those skills out of them. We're developing their skills through inquiry. And another thing we need to consider from a skills perspective is what's our role as a leader in developing those skills? Are we sending people somewhere, or are we taking a personal role in that? And there's tools and methodologies out there that can help us develop those, especially in inquiry type situations, where we can pull those skills or pull application and knowledge out of those folks, whether it's an A3 or a kata model or something like that. And just keep in mind, if we're helping people acquire skills, we need to make sure we have those skills as well. I'm not going to be a very good basketball coach because I understand the game, but nowhere near the level of understanding that a coach would require. That's a big one on this one. I think skills is the more challenging, if you will, of these two capabilities, giving people the capabilities or capacity to make change. One is skills. The second one is resources. This is kind of my generic list of 5 resources. Hey, whether it is they need time, and sometimes that means we create time through stop doing other things. Maybe it's financial resources that folks need to execute a change, physical or virtual tools, whether it's physical tools or technology, or access to expertise. So from a resources perspective, again, it's really important that we figure out what that gap is. And that might be through collaborative conversations with the folks. Sometimes it's our responsibility to define what the boundaries are, especially with regards to resources, because we don't want folks to say, hey, I've got $1 million solution, or we just need a new IT system. So if we're putting in place change and we're trying to do a resource gap assessment, if there's boundaries, let's define those boundaries up front. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in this Thinkinar number 2 with regards to necessary elements for effective change. Some things for the Friday session. like Eric said, it's kind of the lean coffee format, so you can bring the questions or topics to the table on Friday. If you need some stimulus in terms of what might help provoke some thinking or some considerations, hey, what are your thoughts regarding, what didn't I cover? What do you think was really was really sunk in with you regarding the manager or leader's role in acquiring skills? Or another thing that might help you contemplate things for Friday is if you have change in works, what will you do differently, or what hasn't worked in the past with regards to addressing skills or resources? Our session number 3 of 3 is next Monday, where we're going to be talking about some ideas, defining the path to change and creating momentum. So thank you. Hope you got something out of that 10 minutes. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'll turn it over to you, Eric. Eric, if you're talking.
I'm there. Everybody should round up. You're muted, right? So, Mike, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Great insight.